Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Hashtag Behind Relationship Goals. I'm Fofo.
I'm Bones, and this is Soba! And before we begin, our podcast is brought to you by Maker Lab Electronics. So they have given us the hardware to make our own retro gaming system.
Onizi has no idea what that is about, but basically they gave us a Raspberry Pi and all the other parts needed to make our do-it-yourself gaming system. You can literally emulate and make your own Game Boy device or SNES device. You can make it handheld, stick it up to a TV, do whatever you want with it because the Raspberry Pi is a modular product where you can encode or code whatever you want it to do.
That is so cool, and I thought you just had to download these kinds of stuff, but you can actually make your own.
You can download the software, but now Maker Lab Electronics is giving us the ability to also create the hardware.
That is so
And that's
cool.
super cool. And then later on, we can talk about how maybe we could 3D print the case, design what we want it to look like.
Put some digital printed keycaps somewhere over there.
And we'll talk about that a little more later on, but do remember, you can go to their website at makerlab-electronics.com or Facebook at Makerlab Electronics. They're also on Shopee and Lazada.
And with that, we move on to the topic of our podcast, which is actually kind of tied into our sponsor for today's episode, which is about retro gaming.
And future gaming. Actually, gaming in general. And we realize we've done this topic many times.
In different
forms. In different forms. But this space is evolving super duper fast. And I think this episode is going to pique the interest of a lot of the gamers out there.
Especially us, because it's something that Fofo and I have really been looking into for the past couple of months. And if you've noticed, we've had our gamer eye bags. Do we have it?
Maybe.
Yeah, we kind of do. But anyways, let's go back to the very beginning of games in general, or games that we have played since we were younger.
Yeah, so we'll start in the past and move on to future gaming a bit later on this episode of the podcast. But with that, my first console ever was the Game Boy, the original Game Boy that was gray. I said this in another podcast episode. I think that started my love for games.
Okay.
But my first memory, as I mentioned also, was the Super Mario Brothers game on the family computer, the one that's red and white.
Yes.
That also brought a lot of memories, but I remember I was too young to play. It was only Mickey, my older brother, and my dad who would play that. So on this original Game Boy, sikat yung mga 97 in 1.
What's that?
200 in 1. Yung cartridge, feeling ko peke, yun eh. Pero,
No, I was gonna say, fake yata yun.
but like I said, I already said we had no idea. We had no idea of the concept of original and pirated at that time. This
Bata
was like,
ka naman eh.
and I don't think my dad even knew.
Yeah.
This was like the start of games. He would just buy whatever was in the mall for us for Christmas or for our birthday. I remember some of the games that I used to play on the Game Boy. One was also Super Mario.
Okay.
So this was still the green and black monochrome kind of game. And I remember another one which was Felix the Cat.
I never played that one.
Okay, so most of the younger people here may not know who in the world Felix the Cat is. Research, it was a cartoon back in the day.
Yeah.
And super popular, so I really liked that game. I also played a lot of Mega Man and a lot of, well, later on I played Pokemon.
Okay. For me naman, my first ever console was the SNES, which is basically just a rename of the family computer depending on...
No.
No, depending on which region you lived in.
Famicom.
Famicom, sorry.
The family computer is different from the Famicom.
So, hindi pala yung family computer katumbas ng SNES, but it's the Famicom. But anyways, I got the SNES when I was younger, and the two games that I would constantly play was Galaga, when you're shooting the aliens.
Ooh, boring game.
But it was the first one that I had.
I'm kidding.
And then we had Qbert, which was the puzzle na
I
parang...
hated that game. There was, sorry Bones, there was a Qbert in that 94 and 1 or 97 and 1. That was one of the games which I never played because I could never figure out what you were supposed to do.
Hala! Vovo! That was my favorite favorite game.
As in, the internet is a repository of information. FAQs, walkthroughs, YouTube run-throughs.
Walang ganun
But back in
noon.
the day, manuals, walkthroughs, guides, any kind of information in any game was never available. So if there was no tutorial in the game, which 99% of games did not have,
Yeah.
you would have to figure out how to play the game, and then you would have to figure out how to enjoy the game.
Exactly.
Wow,
So
oo nga, no?
I had that before, and it was pretty hard. But those were the two games that I really enjoyed. And then eventually, as I got older, our dad got us the Game Boy Colors na. Hindi na namin nakuha yung original Game Boy kasi medyo mahal pa siya. So nag-skip kami ng mga ilang consoles. So we had the Game Boy Color, and one of the main games that I really played on that was really Pokemon. I don't think I played any other game on my Game Boy except for Pokemon, maybe Kirby, but Pokemon was definitely a number one for my brother and I growing up. We each had our own versions. I had the yellow and he had the red. Those were the two games that we really played growing up.
But Ponizi, just to add to my story, that was super fun because I realize now talaga the discrepancy in the gaming experience.
Yeah, you
now,
can just ask
everything is
anyone.
given to you on a silver platter. There are some games, so all you do is move the person and you're basically watching a movie. It's more of a story than it is a game.
Yeah.
But back then, we really had no idea. There are some games you're just looking at the title screen and you're like, how do I start this game?
Yeah, sometimes you really had to figure it out because even though they had a tutorial, parang they let you figure it out on your own.
Yeah, and I remember a really, really good example, which I think a lot of people my age will be able to relate to. On Windows, you have your standard games of Solitaire, Hearts, and Minesweeper.
Minesweeper!
I had no idea how to play any of those games, and I would just keep on clicking. And then on Minesweeper, when I click on a mine, sometimes I'm like, I clicked on a mine, I won, or something like that.
Yeah, you didn't know whether you won or you lost in that game.
Because nobody could explain it to me. My parents weren't gamers, so they just saw me clicking away. And then on Hearts, it was just cool to see all the cards being laid out.
Heart sweet, I don't know that.
The one with the deck, the 4 decks of cards on either side. It's one of the standard Windows games.
Hindi ba Spider yon?
Hindi. My hearts.
Hearts. I like the spider game. That was really fun for me. Going back to walkthroughs, since before it was so hard to figure out how to actually play the game or like what the Easter eggs were, you either had to have a gamer friend that was super into it or you had to buy. You had to buy the walkthroughs.
And the walkthroughs came in the form of a magazine.
Magazine style. So I remember
Look it up, Gen Z. What is a magazine?
Tinahuso ngayon.
It's true! Most of these people might not have seen a magazine.
They're like, what's a magazine? I just read articles. But I had to beg my dad when I was younger for my birthday na bilhan niya ako ng isang Pokemon walkthrough because there was like a point na I was just super stuck and I couldn't figure out how do you get Snorlax out of the road? Like, what do I do?
And just to let you know, there was a magazine brand called Electronic Gaming Monthly, and it was like the gaming magazine, and it was like $450 per magazine, which 25 years ago, believe me,
Sobrang mahal.
it was like spending 2,500 pesos on a magazine now.
I didn't realize it was that expensive.
It was expensive
but
because it was
cheap.
all imported.
It was cheaper if you got a subscription na parang 1 month,
Bones, you
1
couldn't
year.
get subscriptions here. Not in the Philippines, because you would have to pay for the shipping to get it here. And that would make it even more expensive. It was crazy. Look, I mean,
I'm thankful for my dad because I didn't realize these things as I was younger and I kept asking him, gusto kong sapakin yung sarili ko.
accessibility in the Philippines was difficult back then.
Yeah, definitely.
And now it's so easy to get goods from all over the world. But back then, oh my God, it was expensive.
Kaya pala, when I was younger and my dad was living abroad, parang yung subscription ko ng magazines noon, he would really, have it sent to his address in the US. Tapos
Yes.
dinadala niya lahat pag uwi niya ng Pilipinas.
Bonizi, just to hit the nail on the head with this point, why do you think Filipinos have this habit of buying so much chocolate and candy and bringing it home as pasalubong when all of those chocolates and candies are readily available in the supermarkets now?
Because it wasn't available
20 years
before.
ago, it wasn't. Yung
You're
mga
right.
Snickers, inaabangan namin yung Snickers kasi hindi namin mahanap dito sa Pilipinas.
Kaya pala, I would always wonder,
Yung mga
bakit nagpapauwi to?
yung Nestle Crunch,
Yeah.
Nestle's Crunch pa nga yung sabi ko eh. Yung mga ganun, yung Kit Kat, oh my God, yung Kit Kat, tas yung Kit Kat in a cool box,
Yeah.
in yung big jumbo box. My dad and my mom would go crazy trying to buy all those chocolates and candies so that we could experience them because they weren't available here in the Philippines.
I guess it was the same for video games also because there were probably
More so
a
pa.
lot of video games that weren't available in the Philippines. And even if you lived in the Philippines, parang it would only be available in the bigger cities when we were younger.
Yeah.
So that's why when I was playing my video games in the province, parang they're like, "Where'd you get that?" And I'm like, "My dad brought it." I didn't realize
Pag
these
taga-US,
economic things.
ibang level. But anyway, back to the games.
Okay, back to the
So
games.
after the Game Boy and after the SNES, I eventually got up to the SNES as well and the PlayStation. And I do remember that I really, really loved beat 'em up games, which isn't as popular now. But from time to time, people still come up with these things.
What's
so
beat 'em up
these beat 'em up
games?
games, for everybody can figure it out. It's a side scroller, and there are always enemies coming out, and then you beat them up with the combos, and then kick.
Really? I don't remember playing.
Bones, you played these games.
This is
There
different
was
from
a
like Tekken.
no, yeah. Tekken is a fighting game.
Fighting game.
This is a beat 'em up game where you have to finish a level.
Oh, ML had something like this.
Somewhat. So these are the beat 'em up games, and I remember I played
Okay.
the X-Men arcade beat 'em up game. I played Fighting Force,
Yeah.
Double Dragon, Power Rangers. These were on SNES and the PlayStation.
Didn't Zelda have something like this also?
I don't think Zelda had
Hindi
one.
ba?
No. So these beat 'em up games were super duper fun because you could play it cooperatively with my brothers.
Okay.
I remember there's even a Disney Mickey Mouse beat 'em up game which I really, really enjoyed.
So you had a whole team and you had to figure out how to beat the kalaban.
You had a team and then you would scroll through the street.
I remember now.
location.
Okay, gets
Yeah.
ko na. Gets ko na.
Diba? And then you're like, get the other one there, get the other
Yeah.
one there.
Yeah, hindi ako mahilig sa ganung
Oh, I
games.
love
That's
those
why I
games.
didn't play any of those. But I remember we used to really bond over N64 games kasi mas Nintendo kami. Kung kayo PlayStation, kami naman Nintendo. And we used to always bond over games like Mario Party. We would play games like Rock Band. We even had that for the longest amount of time. I remember one of my favorite games that we would interchange was Banjo-Kazooie. Super favorite ko yun. Parang open world yung dating niya. And Silicon Valley, where you had to move from one animal to the next and you were a microchip. It was like
Oh, that sounds fun.
super cool. Like you were a microchip and you had to move from one animal to the next.
As we got older, I realized that I had an affinity towards games that were more complex and had depth. A natural progression for me was getting into the Sim Cities and these city building games, which now, when I look back, is the reason why I love the farming games, the idle games,
Yep.
games that have something to do with building out your team. So I think that's where my love for those kind of games stemmed from. But what about you? Did you like those kinds of games?
I loved games like Farmville.
But even before that, like, why was your love for Farmville there?
I think it started with games like Neopets.
There you go.
Like definitely trying to like have something that was your own, and then parang you could really play like multiple games with your Neopet. You could like enter in guilds and really talk to different kinds of people. So I thought that was really interesting for me. And these Neopets had certain rarities that you could get, like a really cool one that looked like, I don't know, like a robot or a strawberry or something. I don't really remember. But if you had one of those Neopets and you showed it off in the guild, like, wow, you're so cool. As in, may ganun siyang level. So parang, I guess may status symbol na nangyari in these games. And I thought that was really cool because you could grind for it and you could work hard to eventually get these kinds of characters.
Okay, so we've talked about the origin stories of the kind of games that we like, but nowadays games have changed immensely.
Super.
So for you, how do you see the evolution of games and where it is now?
Number one is definitely graphics, for sure, because I tried playing some old games that I used to love on the Xbox, and I realized that one, of course, the graphics weren't as nice because of the technology. Pero two, the storylines were just so slow. I tried playing the old Pokemon Blue and I was like, dang, this is so slow. Like, can we like pace it up a bit?
Yeah.
I tried playing Fable and it was also really, really slow. So definitely things are at a faster pace now. They really cater to you going straight into the gameplay. It's just interesting because you have a variation from companies na super laki, let's say Sims. And you have examples like Stardew Valley, where it's just created by one single person.
Yeah, basically the gaming ecosystem has grown to become its own universe.
Yeah.
Its own metaverse. Because Facebook has now rebranded to Meta. That is a story and episode for another day, I
So,
think.
hindi na siya games on Facebook, games on Metaverse na siya.
Yeah, games on Meta.
Games on Meta.
Meta is on the metaverse. Yeah, we need to discuss that one of these days. So we'll have a separate podcast episode for that. I think that's also a rich topic. But yes, back to the games. Games have literally evolved to create their own universe. There are so
Yeah.
many different pockets within this ecosystem already. You have the pocket of AAA games, and I was explaining to Bonizi, these are the games that have like 1,000 plus people developing in a studio to put out this one game with a massive storyline, a massive cast, massive gameplay mechanics, and of
Yeah.
course the best graphics. These have a certain market, and of course you need the certain systems and powerful PCs to run these games to the maximum.
Yeah.
But on the other side, there are also pockets where retro gaming is super alive and kicking.
Yeah.
To the point that Stardew Valley, as Bonizi mentioned, I think was developed by one or two people lang.
One guy, Concerned Ape. That's
And
it.
it's crazy how, if you've played Stardew Valley, the depth of the game that he was able to create
The Easter eggs he was able to
so engaging. Of course, it took him forever to create the game, but it just goes to show you how much gaming has evolved. And I think these two pockets, there's so many more different pockets in between. And as a gamer, of course, it is a pleasure to be able to experience all of this.
I think it's pretty cool because if you look at the evolution of a game, for example, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing has been there for like 10 years already. And if you compare the first versions and even New Leaf, which was just before New Horizons, this one, super ibang-iba na talaga yung graphics, the gameplay is almost about the same. But nowadays, because of online technology, diba, you can update the game online. You can have it right then and there. You don't have to buy any physical copy anymore to get an update. And the game updates as the days go by.
That's really interesting. Like the distribution models of games has changed considerably. From before you needed a physical copy of a CD or a cartridge, nowadays that rarely is required anymore. You
Because
can
you
get
just
everything
update it.
downloaded
Yeah.
from the servers. And even your saved games, you don't need memory cards anymore. You just need your digital profile, your digital ID, or your email account.
Grabe no, dati you would have to wait for like version 2. Now it's like update 2 instead.
And for gamers such as us, it was a natural progression because we were always following.
Yeah.
So we didn't even notice this change. But imagine someone who was playing games, like let's say some of my brothers,
Yeah.
who used to play games 20 years ago, and then they want to try out the new game nowadays because maybe their kid wants to do it. They're going to get so shocked at how games operate. They're not going to know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta keep up with the games, keep up with the times so that we can teach our kids in the future.
Yeah. And I think gaming is becoming less of a leisure activity and turning into something else. And this is something we will talk about after this mid-episode break.
And with that, we want to go back to our sponsor of the podcast, which is Maker Lab. So building for us is really a bonding activity. We like to
Yes.
build computers, we like to build our furniture here at home.
But something that has also piqued our interest is 3D printing. We see all these videos and time lapses on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
People 3D printing objects straight out of their imagination.
Keyboards,
Cases.
keycaps.
So many other things, and this power is something that Maker Lab Electronics has lovingly gifted to
Yay,
us
thank you, Maker
by
Lab.
means of the CR6-SE, which supposedly is one of the better 3D printers. It's very well reviewed, easy to use, and silent when it prints, which of course is important to us because we're shooting a podcast right now.
Yes, and to learn more about Maker Lab, you guys can visit their website, which is makerlab-electronics.com.
And before we get back to the podcast, I'm super excited to build our Game Boy emulator and maybe 3D print my old original Game Boy case, and maybe we can turn it into something, and maybe we shoot and record that whole process and turn it into a vlog. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And now we get back to the episode at hand. Bonizi, we were talking about the future of gaming, how much it has evolved, what has been happening. People have been earning from their games. What is happening
It's
in this
crazy.
world?
Can you imagine, like, just a couple of months ago, or even earlier this year, okay, we were paying the games to pay to win in a game.
And FYI, we were paying quite a lot.
Yes. I mean, it was something that we enjoyed doing because we love the game so much. I mean, we do it from time to time pa rin naman. Pero we invested in a game and hindi na namin iniisip kung may ibabalik ba sa amin.
And I remember in that podcast episode, I said, I want to pay for this game and I want to pay for my items because it is my way of supporting the
game.
developers
Yes.
in the game who created it. But now it seems like these roles are reversing. These people who are making these games want to pay us to play this game.
I know.
Because they support us, and obviously without the players, the ecosystem
There's
is lacking.
no game, yeah.
So it's crazy how this ecosystem and this model has evolved from us paying to play games to being paid to play games. And I can see this just changing the job landscape of the future.
Actually, now that you talk about game landscape, let's go back a little bit, okay? So, streaming in the Philippines started getting really, really big in 2019, 2020, and you saw a lot of different job opportunities for a lot of people. A lot of people were able to become streamers and earn from their streaming, gaming content creators and earn from that. You even have gaming companies supporting these streamers and handling these streamers, and that was also another source of income for so many people. And now you have games like you're saying na play to earn that offer another opportunity for people to earn money as well. So ang daming pwedeng mangyari.
And I think if we look at this in terms of the economic structure, it does make sense. Because when you think about game studios and developers, they are one entity wherein all the money is going to.
Yes.
But in this new play-to-earn economy, you have almost all the players. You have the gamers,
Okay.
you have the developers, you have the people who like doing certain niche activities within the game,
Yeah.
all earning money. So the money is essentially more spread out.
Okay.
It's not just billions of dollars and pesos going into one entity, but it's more of billions of dollars circulating around an economy.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit because in traditional games, it's something that we have seen before from people that we know or, you know, gamers that are out there. Minsan, yung mga in-game items nila ay nabibenta nila in the real world, whether it is allowed or not. It just
Yeah.
happens. Nangyayari talaga. At
There is
nakikita
always
natin.
an underground economy, especially to games, especially nowadays. And
May marketplace talaga yan.
we know about these things.
Yes. So, nakikita mo talaga at hindi mo talaga maiiwasan na meron ka talaga makikita na people sell accounts, they sell in-game items for real-life money, diba? So, hindi mo talaga maiiwasan because it's there, diba?
And in this way, in this new play-to-earn format, it seems like it's just being legitimized.
Yes, by the game itself.
And being acknowledged. And it's really, really exciting. I think that this is the year that play to earn has kind of like boomed because you can see it all over the place.
yeah, you see
can
games
it
popping up left and right.
in the news, on websites, on social media. Everybody is talking about it. And of course, because we're so close to games and the gaming news, we're super trying to stay updated.
Yeah.
But the pace of that these things are moving at is just so fast.
Yeah.
It's quite honestly very overwhelming. And that's why we wanted to talk about it. Because coming from someone who's 33 years old,
31
years old, although it may seem overwhelming, you don't need to learn everything right away. Like kami, I'll admit, we're right now extremely overwhelmed, but we're not pressuring ourselves to learn everything right away, but we want to keep an open mind. And I think that's the most important part. I actually had a family meeting with all of my siblings, most of them not gamers. I said, guys, I know you're not gamers, but I need you guys to open up and just get to know this.
Yes,
Because
learn
your
about it.
kids, your nephews and nieces, a lot of them might get into this. A lot of them will be, exposed to this, and this will be a normal thing. Just like how the internet is normal to us.
Yeah.
And ayaw natin maiwan.
Ayaw natin maging dinosaur.
We don't want that generation gap to happen because we already saw it happen to, let's be honest, the boomers, or at least, my titos and titas, my parents, the lolos and lolas. Some of them have a really hard time
Catching
getting
up.
acclimated to
Yeah.
social media and using smartphones. And I told them, we already see it. Let's learn from these.
Yeah.
experiences and try to be better during these succeeding moments because the eras are coming so quickly.
We don't know kasi what's gonna happen in the future, so we might as well learn about it, read about it, whether we agree with it or not, because we don't know, if this is gonna become a part of our lifestyle in the future.
That's true. I think Bonisi made a really, really good point that we don't know what's going to come out of this. Nobody has judged what is happening.
Yeah.
Nobody has said this is absolutely good or this is absolutely evil.
Yeah.
There is no judgment because it's still so early. It's like saying that when the internet was born, like year one, said that's bad, it's never going to happen. It didn't happen that way. The internet was born and people adjusted to it, people tried it out, and then now look what the internet gives us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mindset that we should have. Social media has given us the ability to connect to one another. Of course, people always argue that there are bad sides. But just like the internet has so many bad sides.
Yeah, but it also has a lot of good sides. And I think that goes for everything else. Games have a good side and a bad side. Being overly active has a good side and a bad side to it. So I think when you tackle something, you go into it na medyo balanse dapat.
Yeah, be aware of both. I heard of one argument where they said that it's so scary because what if play to earn really becomes the thing and becomes dominant, which I think it will be. What will happen to the future generations? They're just going to be stuck on their screens. And to a certain extent, that is true. But I think that if you're able to look at that balance nga, and not just focus on one side, the bad side, or not just focus on the good side, I think we will, as a society and as individuals, we will find that balance naturally. Of course, may mga ups and downs yan, may mga good news and bad news. That's all part of the process of evolution.
Yeah, definitely.
And progress.
And because it's so volatile, 'di ba? Hindi natin alam kung biglang isang araw mawawala na lahat tapos you're like, "Oh my god, what happened to the assets that I bought?"
Yeah.
'Di ba? So you have to really balance your mindset na I'm here to learn about it. I'm here to learn about the good and the bad, and then I'll assess where I can place myself into this, whole new thing out there.
Yeah, so just to give an example, on one side, you hear news. Nasa scam yung tao. Millions of pesos. That's so sad because hard-earned money, it hurts to lose that.
Yeah, of course.
But on the other side, you have these 20-year-olds or even teenagers, being so talented at a certain game that they're able to buy a house for their family.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to like the Fortnite winner, he earned millions of dollars in a competition, and that's something that people were so shocked by because people spend years trying to earn this amount of money, and this kid won it in a game, and they're like, am I on the right path or something? But things happen differently for different kinds of people.
I guess my thoughts on this as we head towards the end of this podcast, I think that the pace of progress is accelerating. It's gonna go super duper duper quick, and there are gonna be so many new things, job opportunities and activities and technology that we're going to face in our lifetime, Bonizi.
Of course.
When we have kids and a family, it's gonna be crazy.
Cray.
But that is why I would like to stress openness, not just from ourselves, and we need to remind ourselves of this, but also everyone else, because this is the world that we live in. We want progress. I think that as a society, we always want to be better, and that will naturally create new tech, new stuff, and new opportunities. So openness for me, I think, would be key.
Okay, so if yours is openness, for me, it's really do your own research, because I cannot stress enough how scary it is. Because, I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here and say na it is a scary thing to get into. Play to earn games, let's be honest. I mean, you could earn a lot of money, but you could also lose a lot of money in it. So definitely do your own research. Only put in money that you can afford to lose, I would say, because nakakatakot magkuha ka ng loan tapos mag-invest ka sa isang bagay that you could lose money on.
Okay,
so,
Bonizi, you're talking about another podcast episode that just entered my mind. Maybe in the future. How do you invest in the future? Let's be honest, there are possible investments because play to earn is real.
should we have a podcast about future investments?
Right? I mean, we already talk about how we invest.
Yeah.
But of course, in the future, there are always new things to invest.
Yep.
It's possible that we share this, or we share our thoughts at the very least.
All right. So with that, do your own research and be open to the future out there, ladies and gentlemen. But before we end the podcast, of course, we want to thank our sponsor, which is Maker Lab.
Maker Lab Electronics is a Pinoy tech company that wants to give creators the tools and equipment to reach their goals. Just like us, we want to build a Game Boy emulator to get that nostalgic past in our hands. And they did just that by giving us the Raspberry Pi and the 3D printer and all the other parts that we need to build it. And of course, you have YouTube to help you out with all those tutorials and walkthroughs.
If you guys want to learn more about Maker Lab, make sure that you check out their website, which is makerlab-electronics.com. You can also check them out on Facebook. That is Maker Lab Electronics.
And of course, you can buy their products on Shopee and Lazada.
But before we end, please write down your comments on what you think about this whole new gaming ecosystem. What are the pros and the cons in your eyes? Because we love to hear different perspectives from different people. But at least we can think about all these like different opinions.
And with that, we have come to the end. This is hashtag Behind Relationship Goals. That is Bones. I am Fofo. Soba is somewhere here. Bye, guys.
Bye! Say bye!